Hey everyone, Tyler here at The Movie Beat. Welcome back to another video. It's finally time that I can share with you my thoughts, my 2 cents. There's a lot of opinions out there on this matter of the 4K restoration of Bong Joon-ho's masterpiece, Memories of Murder. And the reason I can finally share it's because my copy, the Criterion Collection, finally arrived and I was able to give it a full watch through. And I have a lot of opinions about this that I want to share. So I guess the first thing that we can say is we were hyped beyond belief when this thing came out, and if you guys saw some of the initial screenshots that came out, it was like, what is going on? Because it looked so weird. Now if you have never seen this film before, you might not have anything to compare it to. However, I got the original DVD back when it first came out, so this was like 2004, and then I have the Blu-ray here that came out around 2006. This is the CJ Entertainment Limited Edition, Digipack Edition. So I had seen this film maybe, more than 10 times before I saw these screen captures, and I could not even recognize it as the movie I knew because it just looked so dark, it looked so green, it looked like it went through a meat grinder or something. It just was unrecognizable. So I was very, very worried, although extremely excited for another Korean film to be coming on the Criterion Collection, because what we get when a Korean film comes on the Criterion Collection is a ton of English subtitled special features, and that is basically the best selling point, I think. No matter what, hands down, whether you like the transfer or not. So before we walk through a couple of these screen comparisons, I'll just tell you guys my first impression of this new 4K restoration when I popped it in. And my opinion throughout this video is going to evolve, so please stick with me. So initially when I put this in, I hated the image. I just couldn't see it. I was like, this is all green, it's so dark. Even in the police, not a headquarters, but like the police station area where they're doing all of their typing and all of their work, I could barely even see what was going on. So I was playing with my settings, I was trying to boost my like OLED light, I was trying to play with the brightness. I'm like, I shouldn't have to be doing this because everything else is set fine. So I thought, okay, it very much seems like director Bong Joon-ho, we know he made a black and white version of Mother, he made a black and white version of Parasite, and with this coming out, maybe he thought he had the opportunity, since he already brought out this Blu-ray version. If you guys have this one, I don't know about the other editions, but when you pop this in, there is a little video with director Bong Joon-ho introducing this package, this Blu-ray, and he's talking about just how excited he is that this is coming out on Blu-ray so many years later, and that we can see it in this great new quality, and that people are still appreciating his film, that he's always still trying to make a masterpiece, even though this one has been acclaimed so much, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, you get the sense that he knows what this is going to look like, and when I do the screen comparisons between the DVD and the Blu-ray, it's fairly consistent. So because that's done, it's out. So many years later, people around the world are interested in Memories of Murder again because of Parasite. Criterion's like, hey, we're doing it. We're going to put all this money in and get a 4K restoration, and we want you guys to get we want the cinematographer to look it over. I got the feeling that Bong Joon-ho was like, okay, this is my chance to do something different, like a lot of filmmakers like to do. So he definitely couldn't get away, I think, with doing a full-on black and white version, but he kind of wanted to make something, do something new with it. Just, I don't think a lot of people like revisiting their old works, especially artists so many times doing the same thing. So he tweaked it a little bit with the colors to do somewhat like a halfway point for a black and white version, to get that out in the world, because he likes kind of these two versions, having a color version and then a different experience, because honestly the black and white experience of Mother and even Parasite do give you a different feeling of the film when you watch it. So I thought, great, it's his black and white version, and as a black and white version, faux black and white version, I was like, I can enjoy this because I have the color version. All right, so I think that this should have included the original color version, just so people can get a sense of what the film used to look like for so many years. But that's not on there. So I do feel very lucky, honored, privileged to own both of these versions. However, I think that it's unfortunate that not everybody can own both of these versions or see both of them. So let's get into some of the screen comparisons, and I can show you guys kind of what I'm talking about. So if we look at this first one, this is from the early on in the movie. The left side is the DVD, the CJ Entertainment DVD edition, and the right side is taken from the Blu-ray. So as you can see, it's pretty much an upgrade that the Blu-ray did from the DVD version. On that rock face area in front of Song Kang-ho's face, on the Blu-ray version, it looks a bit brighter. And if you look on the back, off to the right side of his head, the grass area is also quite a bit more yellow. So it does look like the saturation has been boosted somewhat. So I think overall it's definitely an upgrade. However, if you had started with the DVD edition and you'd watched this several times, when you went to upgrade to Blu-ray, you got brighter. So things were moving in a brighter direction overall. And so when this new 4K restoration comes out and it's so much darker, that's going to create a very jarring reaction. So let's look at a different shot. This shot is taken from the interrogation room, and you can see that it's also pretty consistent. The Blu-ray version does look like it's a bit brighter. I think that overall, comparing this to the new version, it's a bit too bright in my opinion. But I feel like the brightness level of this Blu-ray makes for somewhat of a dated look to the film. Like if you watched a super old movie from the 60s or something like that, and that kind of techno color, even though that's kind of what they intended to do, if that director had been able to shoot with a different camera or a different type of technology to change his picture somewhat, I think you might find a lot of people would choose to do that. Whether that's right or wrong, you know, that's not for me to say. But I do feel like I like the new version better. We'll get to that a little bit later. This is from the final sequence of the film, and we can see that the DVD, yeah, it's a little bit darker, but on the DVD side, I can see a little bit more green in the field. So perhaps with the boosted colors, we've lost a little bit of information. So this could perhaps be an argument for a little bit more of a darker image overall. This shot is interesting in particular because if you look at the sky in the background, the Blu-ray side does look to be a bit more washed out. So we can't really see some of that bluer detail on the lower part of the sky like we can in the DVD edition. So I do tend to feel like now, after revisiting the Blu-ray and comparing it to the DVD, that we are missing some information just because it was boosted slightly here. Alright, so now when we get into the shot comparisons between the 4K restoration and the Blu-ray, I want to read you guys what the Criterion Collection included about the transfer in the booklet here. It says, Memories of Murders presented in its original aspect ratio of 1:85:1, so that's the same as the DVD. This new 4K digital restoration was undertaken by CJ Entertainment and was supervised by cinematographer Kim Hyung-gu and approved by director Bong Joon-ho. So that doesn't mean that Bong Joon-ho necessarily saw it. He gave the thumbs up, and he might have put all of his trust in the cinematographer, which is fine. And then it says, a new digital transfer was created on a Sintel Blackmagic design film scanner. The restoration was carried out using MTI Films DRS, PF Clean, and Diamant Film. So I'm guessing that is some kind of software and technology equipment. So that's after the approval was done. Transfer supervisors, Kim Hyung-gu, so that's the cinematographer, Ok Im-shik, I'm guessing that's a producer or somebody in charge, and then there's a colorist, Kim Sung-won from CJ Powercast in Songnam, South Korea, and then there's the disc mastering, which was done at Pixelogic Media. So there are, it seems to me like there were some steps that went after they did all of the 4K digital restoration. So the restoration was given the thumbs up. I don't know if all of this post-scanning and coloring was approved, but I got to imagine that it was. So I think the interesting takeaway here is he definitely approved this one, so he's either had a change of heart in how he wants the film to look, or he's just kind of doing what he likes to do with making another version of his film. So let's take a look here and what the effects are of that 4K restoration. This first shot is from basically the final shot of the film, and as we can see, the 4K on the left is considerably darker. That orange yellow glow behind Song Kang-ho's head, completely gone. It just doesn't look bright enough. Here's an image early on in the film when they find the body in the field. Here on the left, you almost have to squint to see what's going on. It just seems so dark. And the right side, you know, perhaps a little bit bright, but this is kind of how I got to know the film. So again, a very, very different experience comparing these two images. This one is interesting because I kind of like the greenish look here on the left. It creates a different mood completely, and I think that's kind of goes into Bong Joon-ho doing these like black and white versions or other color versions to create a little bit different mood. This image is kind of shocking because of just how difficult it is to see the information in the Criterion version compared to the Blu-ray. The Criterion one definitely looks more green, and the Blu-ray looks more blue. So that's a different feeling overall. This shot, very interesting because if you guys watch this on, you know, a nice set, you're going to see some incredible detail on this 4K restoration. That's not to say that the Blu-ray doesn't look gorgeous. It does, but you definitely notice that this went through a restoration with improved resolution and clarity. But in this shot in particular, I kind of liked the 4K restoration version because the Blu-ray looks to me like it just looks like an old movie. It looks overly lit, too bright in the background. There's something about it that just looks kind of cheesy compared to the one on the left. And here's a shot that also kind of really spells out the differences. The new 4K Criterion edition is pretty dark, different feeling, and the one on the right almost looks like a portrait, like a passport photo. It's just really bright, it's clear, you can see everything. This shot to me is kind of where I make my decision on how I want to view this film overall. So the one on the left, the 4K, yeah, it's very green, but when you compare it to the one on the right, I get kind of a feeling of a TV drama look, almost just too bright, and like I said, a little bit overly lit. So I really like the one on the left a little bit better, especially when viewing during the film. So these scenes, these bright scenes, were definitely much better on the Criterion edition compared to the dark scenes. I think it looked a lot better. You could see more of the detail, but again, the one on the right, it just kind of looks like a TV drama to me. So let me tell you a little bit about how my opinion on this has changed and is still evolving. When I first popped this disc in and I was watching, I was pretty disgusted. I thought I was not even going to be able to finish it. But then it kind of hit me that this is Bong Joon-ho's black and white version. Just see if you can experience this film in a new way. And because the 4K, the clarity and the detail is like I've never seen before, it's just a slight improvement from the Blu-ray. And in some scenes, especially the close-ups, like outside, and when it's a little bit brighter, you can tell. I'm like, oh my God, this is just so clear, even though it was so muddy, the picture quality. And so in that sense, I started liking it. And then I thought, there is just something wrong with this. And I came to the conclusion that I was watching it with the subtitles on because they went for such a dark image that the white subtitles really affect the viewing experience considerably, because when I turned them off and I just was like watching, just trying to get absorbed, all of a sudden I was like, this is beautiful. I loved the dark image, just how clear it was, the mood that it was creating. I was like, oh my God, this, I can't take my eyes away from this. And then I put the subtitles back on and I was like, I don't like this anymore. And it was something to do with just it was just too bright on the bottom. That white subtitle like ruined the image, this beautiful dark image. And I think that's really unfortunate, and I don't know what anybody can do about that, because if you were Korean and you don't need subtitles, I think you might prefer this new image. Maybe if you just had that same reaction that I did, like, this is just beautifully dark and tense. I was like trying to continue watching it without the subtitles, and I fell in love with this picture, with this new version. Again, when I was done, and then I popped the Blu-ray back in, and I thought, whoa, this beginning is too bright. It doesn't fit, like something's wrong. And I popped the Criterion back in, and I was like, well, it's pretty dark too. But I think I like the new version better. It just felt too bright and warm overall. And then I was like, okay, wait, I'm glad I have both versions. I have the color version, and I have this kind of pseudo black and white version. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. But I don't hate the new Criterion version. I actually really appreciate it, because it really gave me a kind of new look, new experience with this film, and I think that was the point. Director Bong Joon-ho wants us to have a new experience with this movie. Unfortunately, this is many people around the world's first exposure to Memories of Murder, and so they get this feedback from people who have seen it before that the transfer is garbage, something's really dark, and honestly, if this was the first time I had seen it, I think I would suspect something is up. But like I said, I think that is due to the white subtitles. I don't think that there's any better color than white, but on a dark image, and this is just a problem I think with subtitles overall, they do ruin like whatever mise-en-scène you could say with the color that you're receiving, depending how big the subtitles are and everything and their location. This one, it's just too bright for the darkness. I think that's just an unfortunate side effect that is going to live on with this current form of the film. I do not think that they will ever remake the old color version. I think that would be a weird step backwards for at least director Bong. But if you really like the color version, yeah, you could spend an arm and a leg and try to get this CJ Entertainment version, but there is a standard edition as well in Korea that you can pick up that is still in print. And you can have both versions, and you can consider your Criterion version the black and white version, and that way you can go in knowing that you're not missing anything because you have both versions. You're going in for a new experience. Okay, so the last thing I want to do in this video is just share with you guys some thoughts that I have about this director, Bong Joon-ho, and some of his work. I think a lot has been said already, but maybe because of my experience with Korean films over the years, or my life having lived here, and just how that's reshaped some of my opinions about Korean film and different works overall. First, I think it's really hard to judge like a performance as coming in through a different culture, different language. We're just reading the subtitles. Of course, a lot of times it's not even translated very correctly. You know, they miss the nuance, the subtleties, and they just kind of make it in the most plain, easily understandable way possible. And so you miss any like really interesting word choice, or ways like the way that word is pronounced. There's different dialects in Korean. There's just so many different things that you can do. For this director in particular, very in particular, the more that I learn about Korea, the more that I learn about Korean people, the culture, the way that people talk, the different dialects, different types of, like, yeah, I mean, personalities can change from culture to culture, but the attitudes, the norms, the irregularities, Bong Joon-ho's films and his characters, to me, are endless in the amount of depth that they have, because the more that I'm here, the more that I learn, and the more that I rewatch them, I discover more and more and more, and I just cannot believe how nuanced his performances are. I can't believe how well written and how layered all of his films are. So this most recent rewatch of Memories of Murder opened it up even further for me, and I just can't believe how much of a masterpiece that it is, and I'm looking forward to rediscovering new and more things with further viewings and more that I learn about Korean and everything. So, and of course revisiting a lot of his films. I think this is something that's maybe more specific for his Korean movies, not so much per se with like his international productions, Okja, Snowpiercer. It is there, but it's more for his movies. And when I first got into Korean cinema, I remember seeing an interview with Bong Joon-ho, and he's like, I don't even know why I did not expect for such a positive reception from international audiences, because how can they get these little nuances that I'm putting in here? And I think it speaks to just how good his movies are, because people can view them in ways that go beyond his intention. But the things that he intended, I just want to let you guys know that from my experience, there is way more to his films, and I think he deserves all of the acclaim, and he's one of our living treasured filmmakers. Okay, so he's a true artist in so many different ways. So if you are of the opinion like me that he is one of the living masters of film out there, it's pretty understandable that the reaction to any type of even subtle change to his work is going to cause an outcry, a stir. It's like if all of a sudden the Mona Lisa was taken down and re-put up with a whole new color palette. Like, the purists and anybody that, you know, got to know the Mona Lisa before they changed it, they're gonna be like, you know, the ones that love it and everything, they're gonna freak out. And I think that's kind of the case with this. So because the artist Bong Joon-ho is still alive, yes, he does have the power to change his work, and we really can't argue with it as much as we might want to. So I just think that the outcry, the anger, is understandable, but I think we can kind of try to accept. We'll just be glad that we have both options out there. At least the options are there. It's not these. It's not like the color version was completely wiped off the face of the planet. So I'm glad. I'm very glad. I'm honored. I'm proud to own both of these, and it is one of my favorite films of all time. So that's going to be it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed my little comparison, my comments on this new transfer. I think if you guys give it a shot, try, even though it might be, it's going to be definitely hard for a lot of people to understand this movie without subtitles, just turn the subtitles off and watch the picture and just focus on the images specifically. I think you'll get what I mean by it's pretty beautiful. The subtitles, they just do something to detract from that quality that they went for. So very curious to hear your guys' reactions to this transfer. What are your experiences with this film overall through the years? Did you kind of have my experience where you got used to the DVD and then you got the Blu-ray and then you saw the screens for this and were like, what? Or was this your first experience with the film, and I'm more curious if this was indeed your first experience with the film, the Criterion version. What was your initial reaction with the picture? Did you think something looked off? Did you think it was too dark? Or did you actually like it? Do you think that it fit the tone of the film? And was it even a point of concern? So those are kind of all the things that I'm really curious about, and hope that you guys will share with me in the comments below. As always, if you guys like this content, please like and subscribe. The more likes, the more subscribes we get, the bigger the audience that we will get, because I think that's how YouTube kind of puts your video out there and rank it, whatever. So thanks again, as always. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Until next time, I'm Tyler here at The Movie Beat. Keep watching movies.